So this is me and three things that matter. I'm Michael Gamble. I'm in the College of Design. My background's in architecture and fine art. I direct the Master of Architecture program and graduate studies within the School of Architecture, and I teach courses every semester at the graduate level that focus primarily on design. I spend a lot of my time in the Hinman Research Building, which is kind of a hidden jewel on campus. It's the original tool shed, one of the original shops on campus that's now one of the architecture instructional spaces, and would really invite you all to come by and see how the design studio instruction actually works. It's, some of you know it as problem-based learning, but in the design studio we spend a lot of time looking and drawing and critiquing things on the wall. We all put our work up on the wall, and speaking of that, you'll see examples of some of the work of my graduate studio in the makerspace, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit greater detail. I've also been the chair of the Kendita Building Academic and Research Council since the inception of the project, and this has been one of the best things that's happened to me at Georgia Tech because it's connected me with so many of you from so many different disciplines. We all tend to operate in silos, it's a fact. And we're very hopeful that this little building can become a place where that facilitates the free exchange of ideas related to the biggest challenge to our generation and our children's generation, climate change. Now, I've always wanted to be an architect. I've been interested in domestic space and architecture since I was a kid, and I've always called it housework. I'm not good at housework at home, but I call the work that we're doing in our studio and in our practice housework. And I really believe in the potential of design. So I wanted to leave you with three sort of takeaways today. Number one, design really matters. Design matters. The quality of space we live in matters. The quality of space we learn in matters. And I'm not sure about all of you, but I was educated by some of the smartest folks in the world in some of the most dreadful spaces in the world. Suffocating classrooms, windowless auditoriums, labs that make your eyes water, and we're seeing a big shift in the sort of value of design when it comes to just making healthy environments for us to sort of live and work in. So the Living Building is meant to be an example of that. In our College of Design, we have Hinman and Cadell. I think there's examples of buildings all over campus that are starting to move the needle a little bit on the value of the spaces in which we inhabit. And the Living Building, we hope, will move the needle on creating spaces with less toxicity and more natural light, if nothing else. So the number two point that I would like to make is that housing really matters. And I'm picking up on what Beryl and a number of you have already spoken about. Housing is a basic right. It's highly poetic, but it's also deeply functional. Every one of us has a house, I think. I know there's a few replicants walking around on campus that actually have little docks, but for the most of us, we go home, we cook, we care for our kids and our pets, etc. And we should all have access to humane housing, and humane housing can be sustainable housing. Sustainability doesn't necessarily mean that we have to give up something. Sustainability can mean that we can actually add value to things, and I'm a real believer in that. And we hear this around Georgia Tech a lot, but one of our challenges here at Georgia Tech is to improve the human condition, and I see housing as a basic right. So the third point that I want to make is that housing is a vehicle for thoughtful and future-focused research, and all of you have had little touch points on this. Architects tend to be generalists. We're not trained as scientists per se. We bridge the humanities and the sciences. So in a way, housing can become a really important vehicle to situate site-specific research. So, for example, those of you interested in construction might overlap with housing. Economics, equity, energy, transportation, policy, materials, all of these things in this gigantic Venn diagram overlap with this basic need called housing. So the work in the makerspace, the idea with the work that we've been doing each spring, and Tariq Raqqa was here this morning, is that it establishes a sort of baseline for the future of urban housing. It addresses issues of density. It addresses issues of equity. You'll see some financial performance on some of them. So we have a number of people coming in and out and spending time with our students. And interestingly, you'll see that it also draws on our students' diversity here at Georgia Tech. So last semester, we formed teams with high-performance building and engineering students and architecture kids. They worked collaboratively. We don't say in consultancies. They worked collaboratively, and they worked in 8 different locations around the world. They worked in Banda, Africa. They worked in London. They worked in Reykjavik, Iceland. They worked in Syria, very interesting project in Syria, Atlanta, Tokyo, Mauritius, and I'm leaving out one, which is, I'm leaving out one. You can look in there and see it. But anyway, that's indicative of the diversity in the class. The mantra of the course is prove it, so the design decisions have to be supported with fact-based research. And I'll leave you with this because it might seem really paradoxical that technology is so crucial to understanding what often seems to be the primitive disorder of nature. I mean, we're all focused on technology, but we're all addressing issues that are actually quite primitive. So the practice of the built environment, what we're doing in the School of Architecture, what we do in the College of Design, is working on the dynamic between what we would say might be instinctual or analytical. It may focus on creativity, it might be focused on technique, and it's especially focused on art and engineering. So my purpose in appearing before all of you is to say, come and see what we're doing. There's opportunities for us to work together. The output from the creative design is, from the College of Design tends to be highly visual, and it's an interesting vehicle to help get a lot of different projects and ideas across. So I really appreciate the opportunity, and thanks again to Brooks Byers.